Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Cerebral conversations on disability liberation and integration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cerebral Conversations, episode 22. This is Cerebral Conversations, conversations on disability liberation and integration. I'm CJ Campbell.
And I'm Ron Jackson.
Ron, let's get
Cerebral.
boom! And boom, straight into how your week has been.
My week was pretty death-defying, actually.
Death-defying.
Yes, I nearly died at Spanky's.
Now, was this because you were trying to live out your secret ambitions to be a stuntman?
No, I nearly choked to death.
Again?
Yes.
This is a common occurrence in his life.
Yes, it is.
Okay, explain to me. Well, first of all, what is Spanky's?
It's a restaurant here that we have.
Okay.
It's right down the street from our lovely apartment building. And they specialize in gyros and such.
So it's very vegetarian friendly.
Not so much.
Okay, so how did you almost start choking?
I had a steak shish kebab, which they bring to you on a pita because they use pitas for everything. And I was chewing, and I was chewing some more, and as I was chewing, someone said something to me, so I turned my head and I started choking.
Did you have to get the Heimlich?
Almost.
Who was with you?
Shane.
It's always Shane.
Yes. I feel bad. I feel bad.
Oh, man. But you were fine?
Yes, I survived.
Did you enjoy the rest of your steak shish kebab?
Yes. On a good note, I watched the UFC this weekend.
Now, I didn't see it, but I was told that this was like the greatest UFC event ever.
Yes, it was one of the best I've seen in years.
I was also told that the fight with Diego Sanchez was like the greatest fight in UFC history.
It was like Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner reincarnated.
Interesting.
Yes.
I didn't see it, so it has the Ron Jackson stamp of approval.
It certainly does. Gilbert Melendez won the fight, but Diego is definitely a beast.
Yeah, I actually heard, I was listening to the Wrestling Observer podcast, because even though I haven't really watched wrestling in the last few months, I still listen to podcasts.
I do as well.
Yeah. And, oh man, what's his name? Brian Alvarez said that his corner during the third round, because it was clear that he lost the first two rounds, like, yelled at him, was like, "Listen, that man over there is stealing food out of your daughter's mouth." And then he said, like, that Diego Sanchez just got, like started hulking up and just, like, looked like he was about to tear somebody's head off.
It is so true. They said that exact quote.
Yeah, it was just like, see, this is why, well, despite the fact that I'm a staunch pacifist and crippled, this is why I couldn't be a UFC fighter or any sort of combat sports fighter, is because I would, if somebody said that to me, I would just be like, no, they're not. That's completely illogical. I was just like, no, like, we're just fighting for sport.
Not only that, but his right eye was completely bloody and swollen shut. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so I didn't have any near-death experiences by any means.
I'm glad.
It was my friend Chris's birthday party last Friday, and there was a small get-together, and enjoyed some Silver Surfers. For those of you that may not be fans from previous episodes, that is a specialized drink that my friend Josh and I came up with, which is basically a gin and tonic, but instead of the tonic water, it's Diet 7-Up, the Silver Surfer. Other than that, it has just been I've been really struggling this week a lot with just trying to keep upbeat, and I've just been kind of down lately. Definitely felt bogged down by just everything going on politically, and then just sometimes the reality of being an SSI and living within the constructs of cultural disability is really overwhelming. And I was at a point where I was just like, man, I could really, really use some fatherly input. And I don't have a dad. Well, I do, obviously, since I'm alive, but my dad hasn't really been a part of my life. And I've been watching a lot of Parks and Recreation, and it's funny. I kind of wish that Ron Swanson was my dad because he gives like very good fatherly advice throughout the episode, just about like being tough and stuff. I'm like, yeah. So I've been getting a lot of fatherly advice from Ron Swanson.
That's amazing.
Now, speaking of being a dad, by being a dad, that means you have to engage in a certain activity that we call sexual intercourse.
Yes.
And
or coitus, as Sheldon Cooper would call it.
Coitus. I always found that term weird.
Yes.
So we are going to start a group of episodes within the overall theme of love, sex, and dating about disability and sexuality. We don't really know how many episodes on this particular subject we'll do, but we're definitely going to do multiple.
At least 2.
So this will be part 1, and I feel like it's probably appropriate that we, in full disclosure, say that we feel very inept to even tackle this subject, being that we're both heterosexual virgins.
Yes.
Now, I've kind of experienced some things in my teenager years, and fooled around with ladies or two, and some of the factor of my sexual experience or lack thereof is centered around my religious views. But also, I'll be honest, in my teenage years, man, did I try to not be a virgin and failed miserably.
I can see that.
Virgin 5.
Virgin 5.
Yeah, so, just to be full disclosure, for those of you that are looking for us to go in depth with your understandings of sexuality, we are going to try our very best to talk about it, but from basically an outside perspective. So just keep that in mind, and if you want to share your experiences, by all means, just send us an email and we'll share your story, or comment on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Cerebral Conversations, or hit us up on Twitter at Cerebral Convos. Do any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to do our best as advocates, as those with disability, to talk about sexuality from our understanding as heterosexual virgin males.
Yes.
So, Ron, why don't you explain some of your perceptions of sex from your perspective?
Well, a lot of my perceptions of sex come from media and movies and television shows that I watched as a kid and as a teenager. I used to watch things like Party of 5 and Beverly Hills 90210, where sexuality was very romanticized and very popular because it seemed cool for young men to make young ladies a conquest in these types of environments. So that's what my first perceptions of actual sexuality were.
So, do you ever struggle with feeling like you can't fit that role, or that you will be unable to fulfill that expectation?
It's definitely something that I struggle with because even though, much like you said, my morals contribute to my desire to remain a virgin, I still struggle with the idea of living up to that standard of what a 30-year-old male should be like in terms of sex.
Absolutely. And I would imagine, since your disability inhibits you more physically than I do, it um, that there's probably a lot of anxiety just about having somebody to trust to view you as a sexual being without expecting you to like necessarily um, be the one who initiates an engagement of the physicality aspect of sexuality.
Exactly, and that goes even deeper to an issue of questioning my own manhood because I have this notion that I'm supposed to engage and initiate those types of activities because of our culture and society. So it's definitely something I struggle with and something that I have to remind myself is not who I am
Mm-hmm.
as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely struggle with a lot of that too. You know, I mean, since I'm more physically able on the spectrum than you, I mean, I have a better idea of how I will engage and and things of those nature. But there's still this part of me that like I think is quite intimidated by the perception of like hyper masculinity within sexuality. That's like, like you need to like completely physically rock your partner's world, otherwise they will leave you
Yes.
and find somebody with like six pack abs
Yeah.
and that can has full use of their hip muscles.
Yeah.
Like that is a legitimate fear of mine. That someone's like, oh, he's not very good. Which I know that every person I've ever talked to regarding either their fears about the first time they'll have sex or the first time they have sex is that they always wonder if they're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it kind of plays a lot deeper when your physical body doesn't fit the expectations of society or others.
Or I would even say when your physical body doesn't match the person you believe you are.
Yeah.
I would even say it goes that far.
Yeah. I know, as I've talked about my struggles with anorexia, part of it has just been really hard because no matter how hard I try, my body will never ever fit the type of body that I want. And like sometimes I go through these really weird phases where I want to be like super muscular and like just be like shredded. But then like also growing up in like a punk hardcore culture, like it wasn't so much like you wanted guys to be shredded, it was you wanted guys to be like super skinny, and I can't fit either of those body types, and it's really hard. I think something that I've really picked up on is a lot of messages are conveyed around sexuality within the realm of disability as either comical or it is very fetishized,
Mm-hmm.
which then I think contributes to this idea that that someone with disability can never be a fulfilling sexual partner.
Right.
Uh, because you often watch a lot of movies, and it's very rare that I ever see a person with disability engaging in sexuality that isn't outside of like them engaging in prostitution. If at all serious, it's usually them engaging in prostitution. I can only think of one example where I didn't see that, and that was the movie Storytelling
Yes.
that we had a review of shortly after episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's usually comical. Like, I remember Freddie Got Fingered. It was like, there was this paraplegic woman that liked to be hit in the legs with a bamboo stick. And, it was this very comical, fetishized thing. So, I've only seen the messages about sexuality within the realm of disability to either be, like, a kind of dark subculture, or it to be this, like, comical thing to laugh at. I also feel like there's this understanding that like people with disabilities can't engage in sex in a quote unquote normal way, but like I've had countless people be like, well, but you could get really good at doing oral sex, and like
that's what I get a lot too.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, well, you can't be good at normal sex, but, like, you can get really good at this kind of sex and be really good. So, like, it's almost like you could get a gold medal in the Special Olympics of sexuality. And what that does is that really is a dehumanizing thing.
Yes, because if you believe sexuality is a part of who you are, then saying things like that diminishes your human value, I feel like.
Yeah, because something that I've found is that people really have a connection from a platonic level of being able to talk about sexuality and things of this nature. Now, if you view someone else as not being able to engage, or that their understanding or experience is comical, fetishized, or some sort of weird subculture, that it has less value.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you want to admit it or not, you will see their experience and their value as someone with experience as less than you.
Right. And I also come across individuals who are either afraid to talk about sex around me, or are so openly talking about sex because they assume I don't know what they're talking about. So I see both sides of the spectrum on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult. I know that like I've also run into people that feel like they like need to educate me.
Yes.
on sex, like that somehow I am not capable of really getting it. And you know what? One of the things that when I was like, maybe I just don't want to hear about it. Maybe I don't want to talk about this right now.
And I know you've said to me that some of the things that we've seen for the show, you're afraid that it might diminish your idea of what sex should be. So you seem a little uncomfortable in those moments when like we're watching something such as the movie we watched to review. There were a couple moments where you said you were uncomfortable, or conversations with other people.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what you're getting at, but I mean, I think that it's definitely hard for me to to try to understand somebody's experience that I can't understand for sure.
Right.
I don't know if that necessarily has to do with what we're talking about, definitely, but I mean, like, I definitely feel a responsibility as an advocate and an activist to talk about everyone's experience, especially with the platform of the show. So, regardless of what my moral views are on sexuality, which please do not assume what they are, because you'll probably be very surprised, it's not my place as somebody who's trying to shed light to make any reservations. However, I feel like as an individual, as a person, that I also have the freedom, the same as they do, to be like, you know what, I'm not comfortable with engaging in sex in that way. And also, I just, I don't think that I have to talk about everything all the time, There's definitely a lot of struggle where people want to talk to me about sex. They want to ask me, like, does your penis work? And, like, in most settings, I'm fine with talking about it. Yes, my penis works just the same as everybody else's, as far as I know.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's times and places where, I don't want to talk about my experiences with sex. I don't want to talk about, my experiences as a teenager trying to figure things out. And it's not because, I want to bring shame on myself or anybody else, but it's just more of, don't want to talk about those things.
I almost wonder if the settings where people ask us that, because I've gotten the same questions, I almost wonder if the settings in which that occurs plays into the comical idea, because they think it's funny to ask a crippled guy whether his penis works.
Yeah, I've certainly run into that, and I guess maybe these are conversations that we can talk about in future episodes.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna wrap this one up, so but by no means is this the end of the conversation of the things that we've touched on in this episode, because you can contact us via email at cerebralconversations@gmail.com, and by all means, we really would love
Please
to
give us some email.
To receive emails from you to share your stories and experiences, or to ask questions, or anything in between. So that's cerebralconversations@gmail.com. You can also check out our Facebook page, which is always popping. People really like it. And that is facebook.com/cerebralconversations. You can also check us out on Twitter. Did you know we're on Twitter?
Yes, we have a handle.
@Cerebral Convos. You can also check out my personal blog, The Running Search, at cjcampbell.tumblr.com. Ron, where can they get a hold of you?
If I don't die, you can get a hold of me at Ron Jackson on Facebook.
Awesome. He's definitely worth the friend request. It's only a few clicks away to dramatically enriching your life with awesome. So, until next time,
keep it cerebral.
peace.
Good.